This Heroes from the Heart of Virginia special is brought to you by Schulz and Haley Toyota.
Thank you for joining us for this special tribute to our heroes from the heart of Virginia. All month long, we are recognizing the contributions that so many in our area have made serving our country.
Tonight, we will be bringing you the stories of people from right here in the heart of Virginia who have served in our country's wars. We want to start with a man named Buster Schaaf, a World War II veteran living in Lynchburg. His story is a special one.
As a 19-year-old sailor in the Navy, he helped transport soldiers ready for combat to the beaches for D-Day. He also helped bring back those who didn't survive. James Girardi met up with him at the D-Day Memorial in Bedford.
This is a really special place for you.
Yes, it is. It brings back a lot of memories.
Buster Schaaf has never been back to the beaches near Normandy, France. This is the closest he gets. But nearly 70 years after Schaaf landed his boat on Omaha Beach,
The water, of course, was extremely rough.
he remembers every detail of D-Day.
They took quite a beating because we were running through 4 to 5 foot waves.
Schaaf, a Navy sailor, was part of the initial wave that transported thousands of ground troops to the beaches. His boat, an amphibious land and sea craft.
We saw some boats get hit. We were very fortunate we didn't get hit. It just was a...
Words escape him to describe what he saw. The entire day was spent at sea for Schaaf, and by its end he had made 3 trips, each 3 hours.
We had 40 millimeter and 20 millimeter guns on the ship, and that was the extent of our firepower.
Schaaf's small ship with just 2 guns dodged a barrage from Nazis.
It was quite nerve-wracking, you might say.
His final trip to the beach was perhaps his most profound. Schaaf spent it picking up fallen soldiers.
We picked them up out of the water.
A massive graveyard absent of headstones and coffins.
Many of them were floating around after the original invasion.
He did not talk about the war until they started building the D-Day Memorial.
But Buster made sure to write his then-girlfriend.
He wrote every day except when he was involved in D-Day.
They've now been married for more than 6 decades and spend time here. Thankful this D-Day hero can look back now and smile.
It was an unusual event,
to say the least.
At the D-Day Memorial, James Girardi, ABC 13 News.
Schaaf is a volunteer at the memorial. He says he has no plans to go back to the beaches near Normandy.
Sergeant First Class Randolph Stone went into the Army in 1983. During his time in the military, he served in Operation Desert Storm as a tank mechanic and went on to serve several tours in Iraq and Afghanistan as a combat medic. As you're about to see, his 20 years of service and his last tour to Iraq changed his life forever. Dominic Ricks has his story.
Sergeant First Class Randolph Stone is a decorated veteran. He's been honored with several awards, including a Bronze Star, Meritorious Award, and...
This award is my Purple Heart for getting wounded in combat. It's not something that I really wanted, but every time I see it, it reminds me that, this is what happened.
March 15th, 2007, Sergeant First Class Stone's life changed forever.
I just remember waking up in the hospital in Landstuhl, Germany.
Nearly 2,800 miles from where he was injured in Iraq.
I was really unsure of what was going on because I can remember yanking wires out of me and putting IVs out of my arm and having the doctors and nurses rush into the room.
But confusion quickly became reality as Stone was given tragic news.
I was paralyzed, and they asked me how I felt about it.
The day he was injured, Stone was clearing the roads of mines and bombs when his unit was ambushed and their truck was blown up.
A spinal cord injury, basically from chest down.
A broken pelvis and traumatic brain injury that still affects his memory to this day. But he says he's blessed to be alive.
I haven't let my injury stop me from doing the things that I want to do. toy in the pocket. There we go.
Stone is very active. This year, he took home second place in pool in the National Veterans Wheelchair Games.
I'm limited on some of the things I can do, but anything that I can do, I get out and do it.
That's really nice. I like that one.
He married the woman of his dreams in July and has a loving family who he can count on.
I had a big support system.
He's also very fit. But don't try to call him a hero.
I don't feel like a hero. I feel like someone that did his job.
We seem to feel otherwise. In Brookneal, Dominique Ricks, ABC 13 News.
Sergeant First Class Stone retired from the military in 2008 after 20 years of active duty. Besides being active in athletics, he is taking online classes at Liberty University and plans to one day be a school counselor.
You get the sense he can do whatever he sets his mind to doing.
Absolutely.
Well, David Harker did not just fight in Vietnam. He was held captive for 3 years as a POW. Coming up, he tells us how he was able to survive when many of his men did not.
And he wasn't injured in battle, but by Mother Nature. John Kessler talks about the horrors he saw during World War II. He came home to a hero's welcome after being held captive for more than 5 years. Rachel Scher brings us a Forest Man story of service and survival.
And I was terrified.
Pictures of his grandchildren have replaced war medals. These are the memories David Harker prefers to keep.
I was terrified. I said, oh, I'm going to die. I'm 22 years old. I'm going to die.
At 22 years old, Harker was drafted to serve in the Army. Within 6 weeks, a booby trap captured him, and he spent the next 3 years in one of the worst jungle camps in South Vietnam. He suffered from panic attacks and several bouts of malaria. Many men in his camp would not survive.
And you're completely stripped of everything physically. You've got not very much food, you've got no TVs, no phones, you've got nothing except the jungle.
But it never occurred to this Lynchburg native to give up. And on March 5th, 1973, Harker and 600 other POWs were home. Just after landing, a much younger Harker addressed the crowd of Americans.
And we, in return, would like to pay tribute to those men who gave their lives in service for their country in the battlefields of Vietnam.
He became a symbol of hope after the very unpopular war, but it was the little things about home and family he missed most.
Called your parents, and I listened to my mother, and I thought she sounded like a hillbilly. I hadn't heard her voice in so long.
Harker returned home to Lynchburg, married his high school sweetheart, and became a parole officer. And in 2002, Governor Mark Warner appointed him to vice chairman of Virginia's parole board. This former prisoner now had the chance to free others.
When I was doing parole interviews, why are you hurting your poor old mother? This is the 3rd time you've been in prison. Do you ever think about her?
Today, David Harker is far from the battlefields, far from prison.
Here, grab my hands, grab my hands.
He considers himself a full-time babysitter to his 2 grandchildren, but sometimes it still hits him.
I came home from work one day and I said, Linda, I love the humdrum of life. I just, here with my kids, not in the limelight. I mean, that's the American way.
Indeed it is. Harker's experience in Vietnam has changed his perception of war. He says the country should use it only as an absolute last resort. He's a regular speaker at veterans events, but says it's the time he spends with his family that means the most to him.
We hope he enjoys that time with his family and continues to. For years, the common take was that 1,000 World War II veterans die every day. That's not the case anymore because the number of those vets is much smaller as the greatest generation becomes our oldest. David Tate introduces us now to one of those vets, Lieutenant John Kessler, who was about to experience the worst events of his life in 1944.
One of the most important things John Kessler has going these days in his 91st year is making sure generations of young people don't forget the most tragic war this world has ever seen.
For 40 years, nobody ever gave a damn about World War II. That was just a bunch of stuff that nobody wanted to listen to.
So for his part, he visits school after school and senior group after senior group telling his story.
I love every one of them, and they love me. They always want to be up around close to me.
But that's where the story is today. It began back in 1921 when Kessler was born in the same house as Stonewall Jackson. Perhaps prophetic in a way, because at the age of 17, he followed in Jackson's footsteps and went to war. Except in Kessler's case, and millions of others like him, he was trying to help save the world.
We lost men by the thousands over there in the invasion of Europe, in the invasion of Africa, the invasion of Italy. All of those places are very important.
Beginning with the 509th Parachute Infantry Battalion, Kessler would see combat from France to Germany, earning a Purple Heart in action at St. Vith and again during the Battle of the Bulge, where he also earned 2 Bronze Stars, one for leading his men as they held off a major German counterattack. In fact, it wasn't the Germans who put Kessler out of action, it was Mother Nature, as one night stalking a German tank, he fell through some ice.
Next morning, I was froze from here down. I couldn't move. I was just froze in space. The guys had to pick me up, put me in a Jeep, and they didn't stop at the medical tent. They took me straight to Liège, Belgium, the hospital.
While in the hospital, more than 90% of Kessler's battalion was killed or wounded. So when he came back to the front, he was assigned to the 82nd Airborne, where the inhumanity continued. He helped uncover a concentration camp and mass graves. He and his men forced to kill scores of Allied Russian soldiers who they continually caught raping and murdering women in a conquered Berlin.
Where do you turn the line when you see stuff going on like that? You don't. Not me. Not me. If I see something like that, I'm going to correct it right quick.
All stories that take a toll for Kessler to tell, but stories that he is proud of, that he wants to tell. Stories he insists cannot be forgotten for the sake of all those tens of thousands who died during that time. In Roanoke, David Tate, ABC 13 News.
You know, it took Kessler more than 40 years to receive his awards for valor and blood, because when his unit was wiped out during the Battle of the Bulge, all the records were destroyed as well. Kessler says he is one of just 5 remaining members of that unit still alive today.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes soldiers don't experience the wounds from war until long after they get home.
A Lynchburg man is now living with those scars. What happened when he got back from Iraq?
Specialist Jesse McDonald's current mission is as a father, a husband, and a student. He's doing this all while overcoming a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, despite being injured while saving others, the Lynchburg native turned down a Purple Heart because he felt that honor belonged only to the people from his platoon who made the ultimate sacrifice. Angela Hatcher has his story.
April 23rd, 2007, at around 1:59 p.m.
Specialist Jesse McDonald remembers it right down to the minute. The attack on their base in Iraq, the 9 brothers he lost.
Several of them, passed away doing truly heroic things, things that cannot be described in words, things that you don't see in the movies, things that you have to be there to really feel what that is.
The way it felt to save 2 men and to kill the enemy.
I was blown up and shot at and fired back.
McDonald remembers writing this letter to Danielle, the woman he was in love with back home.
By the time you get this letter, you probably will have found out, but there was a horrible accident with 2 car bombs. I didn't get hurt.
He blamed his headaches on the noise and stress of war. It's when he started to forget little things, months later, that the young soldier's traumatic brain injury was discovered by Army doctors. To this day, migraines that come on as quickly as the attack that caused them won't let him forget. Neither do a Bronze Star with valor, his buddy's boots, or a son named for fallen brothers.
I tell him all the time, you were left here, you survived, you're here so that, not only can Gabby have a daddy, but now we have Ryan and Kale as well.
God left me here because he knew what I would become, this father and this husband, and this family needs me.
McDonald reminds himself of that every day and has this reminder for us all.
Regardless of how you feel or what your situation is, you're alive and in the greatest nation in the world. There's nothing else that can beat that.
In Lynchburg, Angela Hatcher, ABC 13 News.
McDonald is close to receiving an associate's degree from Central Virginia Community College and plans to continue his studies at Lynchburg College. He'd like to work in environmental science or with other veterans who need help after they come home.
Well, that is very good of him. Well, if you have ever been by Monument Terrace in Lynchburg on Friday afternoons, you've seen him.
But you probably don't know the story behind what motivated Steve Bozeman to start the weekly gatherings. We're going to have that for you next. You may recognize Sergeant Steve Bozeman as the one carrying the American flag in the Virginia 10-miler, or gathering every Friday for the past 11 years at Monument Terrace to support our troops.
But you might not know where his love of country was first born. Parker Slabaugh has Sergeant Bozeman's heroic story.
I'm 66. I need to tell a story. I need to help these younger warriors.
Most every Friday for the past 11 years, Sergeant Steve Bozeman can be found right here at a place he helped to build.
Monument Terrace means so much to me that I felt like I had to give something back to it.
And give back, he did. Below this concrete monument forever lives a piece of Sergeant Bozeman's past.
We took our Purple Heart medals and we had a capsule. We stuck it right in the center of this ring right here.
A Purple Heart medal he will never forget earning in Vietnam.
Every day you look in death in the eye.
In 1966, Sergeant Bozeman enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. A 19-year-old boy, he was forced to grow up fast. His title, a door gunner, his job, helping to load dead and injured Marines on a chopper to get them home.
When you first get shot at, it's a scary thing, and after that, and seeing dead Marines and you're saving wounded Marines, all you want to do then is stay alive and help your fellow Marines stay alive.
That determination would soon be tested.
You never forget is the day you almost died. They shot and a helicopter caught on fire, and we crashed about a quarter mile away. And next thing you know, everybody got out. The helicopter's on fire, but there's one Marine still stuck in there.
Without any hesitation, Sergeant Bozeman proved to be a true hero. In an active battlefield and with the Marines still stuck in a burning helicopter, Bozeman says he was just doing his job.
Threw my machine gun down and hauled ass across the rice paddy and reached up in a helicopter and got him out. And to me, the best medal is a live man's smile.
And that's the last time he ever saw that smile. Bozeman has never met the man whose life he helped to save.
I look back and say I was meant to be at that time, at that place, exact moment, to save his life.
For a while, Bozeman never talked about his experiences at war, but after September 11, 2001, when our men and women were sent back to a foreign battlefield, Bozeman began organizing a group to show support for those in harm's way. And since that day, he's taken it upon himself to help those warriors who do make it home.
We have to support these guys. And so I'm so glad that the community is doing that.
In Lynchburg, Parker Slabaugh, ABC 13 News.
Lynchburg is lucky to have him. Byron Taylor says the Army taught him to give back, and that's just what he's doing. When we come back, how he is helping fellow vets now, decades after his service.
Our last profile tonight is of a U.S. Army veteran on the South Side. Byron Taylor served in the Vietnam War and worked his way up to sergeant.
Decades later, he is still serving his community, but in a very different way. He has dedicated hundreds of hours helping other veterans. Heather Rosenbaum spoke with him and has his story.
There were good and bad times, but to me, Vietnam was one of the most learning experiences of my life.
For Byron Taylor, the years 1969 to 71 marked a milestone.
There are things that I experienced in Vietnam that I'll never forget, but the thing the military does for you is teaches you discipline. It makes you a much better person.
The Army also taught him to always give back. So when he heard that local veterans were in desperate need of a volunteer to drive them to medical appointments, he didn't hesitate.
He said, "We can't get a driver." He said, "Yes, no one wants to do it." I gave him all my contact information and said, have someone get in touch with me.
The patients didn't have any way to get to Salem if they didn't have transportation or didn't have gas money.
Now every single Thursday, Taylor wakes up before sunrise to drive fellow vets from Danville to Martinsville and then back home in the afternoon. Taylor has clocked more than 5,000 miles and helped nearly 300 veterans over the last 3 years.
I was fortunate enough to come back from Vietnam the same way I went. So there are those who are coming back from not only Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. They did not come back in the same medical condition that they left with.
It's veterans helping veterans. It's wonderful. There's a camaraderie that's you can't find anywhere else.
Air Force veteran Deborah Kleinfelter wouldn't be able to make the drive on her own. Because of Taylor, she makes her appointments.
Proud that he continues to serve, even though he's retired.
While Taylor no longer wears a military uniform, he still serves his community.
To me, anyone who has served is a hero.
Great stories all. Thank you for joining us for this special tribute to our heroes from the heart of Virginia.
You can all see all of these stories and others on our heroes page at WSET.com. Good night.